If you do not yet follow me, I would invite you to follow me on the Instagrams and the Twitters at Colby Martin. Special shout out to my mom for giving me a unique name like Colby so that I could have my own Twitter handle and not fight with people at Colby Martin. Kristen! Hi!
Hey! How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm having a great time tonight, and it's going to be so much more funner now that you're here.
Much more funner.
Much more funner. Have you seen those billboards about Funner, California? Because you live down these parts.
Are we funner?
I don't know what they mean. They say Funner,
know.
California, and I don't know what that means. Kristen, you have a book coming out. I know we're here to celebrate my book, but I'm going to stick your little book cover up in the corner there because your book is coming out, and I'm super stoked for it. Because you've been raging against the van for a long time now, right?
Well, I am raging against it, although I did lose my battle. I do drive a minivan. It is in my driveway, but I have written a blog called Rage Against the Minivan for a long time.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. It's full of just honest reflections about the life of parenting humans, small humans.
Yes.
And you also have, so if you're just joining us, everyone, by the way, my name is Colby Martin, and I'm doing this live stream event because my book, The Shift, Surviving and Thriving After Moving from Conservative to Progressive Christianity, just came out today, and we're in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, so I can't do a live event, but we can do things online, which has its own degree of interest and fun, I think. Oh, I see what you did. You put my little book behind you. Oh, look at that. Staging that area. That's fantastic.
Well, I have to say, though, this bookshelf behind me is a giant mess. And then this is the soundproofing curtain because I've been recording my audiobook right here in my bedroom.
Ooh, how's that been going?
I don't know. I've never done it before, so I have no idea. I guess it's going okay. It feels pretty awkward, but...
Yeah. I did just a few voiceovers for some of the videos I'm playing tonight. I'm like, wow, doing a whole book? That's challenging.
It was a lot, yeah.
Are you improvising a little bit as you are reading the script?
No, you know what's funny? I wish I would much prefer to improvise, but you have to say everything exact. So there's actually a director in my ear correcting me every time I say, one little wrong word, which is apparently a lot. Apparently I make a lot of mistakes when I read, so. I
did not realize you had to be so specific.
I didn't either. Maybe I should have practiced, but I didn't, so here we are.
Sarah Heath says, two humans I adore. And I just had to put that one up there. Hi, Sarah. I don't know if you're out of your meeting yet. She said earlier she's in a meeting and had me on mute, but she was going to check in later. So, okay, Kristen, thank you for making time for this tonight.
Also, Deneen says Funner, California is an actual town.
Deneen says that Funner, let's put this up there. Deneen says Funner, California is an actual town, but it's a marketing gimmick to get people to visit. Oh.
I had no idea there was a actual town called Funner, California.
I had no idea either. That's amazing. Okay, well, I don't know where it is, but I have a new goal when quarantine's over. Most people will be like celebrating with friends. I'm just going to try to find Funner. Okay.
Totally.
So what I'd love if you would like to share with us, because I know that you have made a similar shift. And I say similar because honestly, the specifics of everyone's shift as they've moved from something a little more conservative to something a little more progressive, the specifics are going to be different, unique, nuanced for each person. But there seems to be these common themes that show up in this journey, which is part of why I started to get the idea for like a survival guide, because there's enough commonalities that I think a book like this could be helpful for. And then I also think that in people's specifics, so this is why I want to get to your story, particulars help illuminate the universals. So I'd love if you would share from your experience, as you reflect back onto your shift, what was something that you found particularly challenging as you said goodbye to a more conservative, or were kicked out, I don't remember how your story goes, and moving towards something more progressive?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I resonated with some of what Brian was saying in terms of kind of grieving the loss of certainty. I was raised very fundamentalist. I was raised that every single word of the Bible is the literal, absolute truth. And so when I started to shift away from that fundamentalism, it was hard to not feel absolutely certain about everything, and almost to feel like, okay, if I pull one thread of this tightly woven feeling of certainty, then maybe nothing's certain, because that's how I was raised. I was raised with that faulty theology of, if you don't believe every single word as literal truth, then how could you believe anything? And I had internalized that. So some of it for me was walking that back and going, you know what, actually I think I can look at the Bible as a text and Jesus as a spiritual leader. And I think I can say, you know, I think this was in the context of culture. And I think this maybe wasn't literal. And I can still be a Christian in all of that. So I think that was a component of it for me, was grieving. Because, man, certainty feels good, doesn't it? I mean,
it's great. Certainty,
I missed
you
it.
can build all sorts of things on certainty.
I missed it a lot.
Yes.
And I like certainty. I don't like ambiguity. I talk about that in my own book. I'm a person who wants to know what's going to happen. So that was hard for me. And you and I have talked about this before too. I think the other thing that was really difficult for me was leaving the community that I had built. You know, I grew up in a certain denomination. I left that denomination because I did feel it was too stringent. It was very, very fundamentalist. But then I moved into a new fundamentalist community where people had tattoos and there was a coffee shop. Does that make sense? Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Same completely fundamentalist views, same homophobia, new tattoos.
Yeah.
So, you know, just dressed up in a different package. And I think within that, I started to, you know, my views started to shift, especially around LGBT rights, immigration, politics, all those kinds of social justice issues that push many of us in a different direction. And I felt that community dissolving because people were finding my views to be threatening, because they held on to that certainty and I was ripping at their threads. And I could see that my friendships within this community were not tenable if I was not kind of following the line.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to walk away from a church where I had worked, where my spouse had been on staff for 10 years, where my children had grown up. It was my everything. It was just my total foundation. And that was a huge loss for me, and there was a ton of grieving there, and I really wondered, you know, who would be the people that show up for me if I'm not in this church community. And I had to build that, some outside the church community and then some within a different church community, but that was very difficult for me.
Yeah, those two things you brought up, the scariness of like tipping that first domino, like,
yeah,
is this going to tip over everything? Because I think, like yourself,
is it a house of cards?
Yes, yeah. And we were told if one thing in the Bible is not true, then the whole thing is not true. It was an all or nothing, zero sum game, which is terrifying then to question anything. And yeah, that's I tell you what, when I was telling people that I was working on this book, like one of the number one things was like, are you going to talk about the pain of losing your entire community? And because that is a type of pain that I don't know how to really describe if you haven't felt it, and you don't really like. It's unique. It's a unique type of emotional, psychological pain to lose this group that you'd invested in for so long, and in your mind for like no good reason. You're like, I'm still Kristen. What is going on? Why?
Yes. But you know what? I do want to say this, and I don't want to sound like I'm casting judgment on that group of people. But at the same time, as you said, Colby, I was still me. I was still at the core who I am.
Yeah.
And I realized that if my friendships could not withstand a shift, and it's not even like I became an atheist. I became a more progressive Christian. if those people could not still be my friend, those weren't the rooted friendships that I imagined that they were. And when I left that and then found new friends, I feel that now the friendships and communities that I'm in, I can say anything. Yeah. I can speak any doubts. I can walk in and say, I don't know what I think about this or that. And these friendships are built on like a core soul level, not just that we agree on a theology, if that makes sense. And so I would just say for anyone, maybe who's watching and feeling that fear of leaving a community, that I promise it's going to be really hard. But on the other side, I do think that there is a stronger sense of community waiting for you, maybe with less judgment, maybe with deeper roots than you even imagined.
I love that you said that. I love that you talked about the type of community on the other side of the loss of community, because it's built on different things, and I think it's built on things that are more sustainable. To your point, I don't know. I want to say truer. Like I don't want to accuse previous relationships and previous communities as being shallow. That doesn't have to be true at all for people. And yet, if it's built around a commitment to a shared belief, then there is a shallowness to that. So I'd love that you're speaking to the type of community on the other side of that loss.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say too, having experienced, like I was so involved in my church, that I realized that so much of that friendship was built around the doing of church, which I know you know what that means. I mean, it's like your shared experience is doing church, is putting the church together, or, creating the structure or things like that. And you realize when you take that away, that scaffolding away, is there an actual friendship underneath of reaching out, of doing life together outside of doing church together? That I would just caution for everybody. It's like you have to make sure that you're actually investing in each other's lives, not just parallel play of doing church together and believing the same things.
Yeah, that it's so good. I'm trying to be conscious of time, and I've kept you, I think, longer than I told you I'd keep you. So I want to say, thank you so much for making time for this
I'm
tonight.
So happy to.
2, just want to remind everybody that Rage Against the Minivan is Kristen's book that comes out
June 9th.
June 9th.
Yes.
And I don't know what sort of condition the world will be in. So if there's anything I can do to help, if you want to do a live stream extravaganza, you just let me know. And then finally, 3, as I let you go here, just share one thing that you found really liberating in your shift. Like just one thing that really made the whole, right alongside all the hard parts, what was the part that was like, oh, but I can see the new life on the other side here.
I really have to piggyback on what Brian said. I find it very liberating to look at everyone in my life as just a friend, not a project, not someone I need to convert, not someone I need to refine, but just I feel freer to love in the way that feels more natural to me.
Yeah, so well said. Kristen, you're fantastic. Your voice is good in the world. You're doing great work. I'm really proud of you, and Thanks for having you on. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. Congratulations on the book.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Kristen.